Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good early morning.
I know.
Good early morning. PowerlifeTV broadcast. Pastor Brian
And Pastor Tasha.
here to give you another great broadcast. We didn't really dance like we normally dance, huh?
Well,
That's okay.
that's okay. I think it's too early. I think we're not used to waking up so early, and our brain is like, you really want to do that?
So tell them why we're doing it.
Okay, so we have to. We have the privilege of getting our daughter to an early morning job. Right now, they're in training, and so she really can't be late. And so we're having to wake up super early, super duper early.
Extra early.
We've already been up for a couple of hours, and it's like my brain hadn't said it's time to be up yet.
Yeah. So everybody, for the next couple of weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
5 weeks.
5 weeks. We're going to be coming on early. So I know a lot of people like to come back and
I know
watch the
after
video.
about 3 or 4 days we're gonna be.
Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll get it back in line. But I think some people like the early morning.
Yeah, I see Gail Taps.
Yeah, yep. Gigi's on. Good morning.
This is perfect for Gail Taps.
Yeah, I know. She's an early bird. And then Courtney, I think Courtney's an early bird as well.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Look, Rachel Taps.
Rachel is on. Good morning.
She's an early bird.
And Pam is on. Pam and Barry.
Pam and Barry Barnes.
We had them
Felton
on.
Joseph.
Yeah, Felton Joseph. Good morning.
So this is probably a really great time.
Yeah. So, and Gail said, we haven't done this since the beginning of the morning.
That's true. Very true.
But we had Pam and Barry Barnes on yesterday. That was a good
That
broadcast.
was a great broadcast.
Yeah, it really was. And we want to get them back on. We're going to have to do Blended Family Part 2. And they actually demonstrated how agape love works in the family, which we're going to talk about today when it comes to blended families. Now, one thing that I like is how you said yesterday, the blended family has always been around.
It really has.
And go back into that just a little bit.
Well, so we often think that the blended family is a product of modern life and that it's more recent to the human experience or the family experience, but it really is not. Simply because, between wars and, World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, and then also because healthcare was not back then what it is today, people died earlier. So we remember the Brady Bunch of the 70s and 80s. It's a sitcom that demonstrated the resolve of the blended family. And so we've always had the situation of either a mom or a dad dying or something like that, and then the family coming back to a place of kind of a wholeness in a way, or some people don't see it that way. That's up to you how you look at it, your perspective. But the dad will remarry or the mom will remarry.
And I think Hollywood that's why I think maybe it's such a new concept, because Hollywood is just now starting to.
Well, not just Hollywood, but the church.
The church, yeah.
The church didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah, and reason why I was saying that is because there are several movies out that I think about now, and one movie is called Blended.
Oh yeah, Blended.
Yeah,
yes.
and
I see what you're
it's
saying.
an Adam Sandler movie, and it basically talks about how a couple, at first they couldn't stand each other, but they went on this adventure in Africa, and this connectivity brought them together. I guess
they found common ground.
They found common ground, and I think that's what happens in a lot of relationships. If you can find some common ground. Now you may have a little kickback from the children or the biologicals, but I think eventually, if you prove that you love,
yes, you have to build a new family unit.
Yeah.
When you remarry, and that's a challenge sometimes because we go through several tests when there's a biological situation and when there's a blended situation.
Yeah.
And the biggest one, you know, we talked about this, lower trust and higher expectation. And so how do you overcome the feelings of betrayal? You know, what every blended family is looking for is home. Home is not just a place. Home is very often a person or people. You know you're home when you feel safe.
That's so good.
And it's hard to find home when maybe the people who represent home are not there, or else it's not like it used to be. And so then you have to create a new situation or a new place that you can finally let your guards down, finally call home, a place you can settle. And
that's good.
And so, you know, that's where we are. And you know, home is where love is. And I think that's, you know, we're resisting in a blended family the very thing we need in order to find a place called home.
That thing, home, and you just say home is where love is.
Home is where safety is.
People can look at what we just said and go, well, there's not a lot of love in my home, you know. And I think we don't quite understand love sometimes.
Well, love is a decision.
Love is a decision. And one thing I know about love is that love has many, many meanings.
It does.
And this is just a repeat, but it's good for those of you who are listening for the first time to this. But love, there are 4 types of love. First love that many of us really know about, I believe, is called the agape love. But that's the most important love. That's the decision love. That's the unconditional love.
Yeah, that's the love that says, even if my feelings are not and my emotions are not to love, my decision to love overrides all of that.
And I look at it like this: when a child is born, the parents love that child unconditionally.
That's very
They made
true.
a choice to love that child, and the child has done nothing to earn that love. As a matter of fact, that child will do everything to discredit the love, you know, because I mean, it wakes you up in the middle of the night. He or she wakes you up in the middle, not it. He or she, you know, you went through 9 months.
It cries, it poops.
Yeah. He or she, you carried him or her for 9 months, and you know that may not have been so pleasant. So you know that child does nothing to warrant the love
that you have for it.
But you will get up in the morning. You will feed that child. You will dress that child.
For 9 months, you've been meditating on the arrival.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, it arrives not with a smile or a greeting or, you know what I'm saying?
It arrives with a cry.
It arrives with a cry.
Yeah, like good Lord.
And instead of you being like, ugh, you're like, oh.
It's bright out here. And then, you know, they...
What do you say? It's bright out here.
It's bright out here, you know.
Wow.
But...
Man's perspective.
That's agape love. When you look at the other types of love, one love that many people don't know about is the love called phileo love. Now, phileo love is a brotherly love. We get the word Philadelphia from the word phileo.
City of brotherly love.
So,
that's right.
So we call this like a friendship type of love. You know, this is a very deep love as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
David had phileo love for his for Saul's son Jonathan.
Jonathan. And
I was gonna say Joseph. You see,
But-
enough of this yet.
But Jonathan and David displayed a love that many people misunderstood because they were so close. You know,
That's very true.
in today's time, they would be looked at as probably same-sex couple or partners.
But they weren't. They were best friends.
Yeah, but that's the kind of love you need to have in, I believe, a marriage.
Oh yeah.
You need to have that
yes.
friendship love first, that covenant friendship love that said, I'll give up of mine so that you can be full, and you give up of yours so that I can be full.
Yes, when marriage became a friendship, you know, and I think it always was, but I think at some point when you're raising children, there's hers and mine, you know, And, you
So
get
good.
wrapped up in working and raising children that, sometimes it's like a contest to see who can, who can, I don't know, this is my territory, this is your territory, you do what you're supposed to, I'll do what I'm supposed to, and everybody's going to be happy. And that's not really how relationship works. It's the mingling. It's the giving of yourself. It's about, I believe, going beyond what you have to do. And then when blessing your spouse is what you get to do, boy, I tell you what, marriage is a joy.
Say that again. When blessing your spouse is something you get to do.
Yes. I mean, it used to be like, could you take the garbage out? And now it's like, I don't mind doing that. I can take the garbage out. Will it bless you if I take the garbage out?
It's kind of like that whole Chick-fil-A thing. It's my pleasure to serve you.
It is my pleasure to serve you. It really is.
It is my pleasure to serve you.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that culture. Amen. But that's what phileo love is. It's giving up. And I love that part that you just said, that this is not my children that I'm bringing into a relationship. This is going to have to be our children. I have to have that perspective that these are our children.
And so in practical terms, like we said before, the greatest love is a decision, not an emotion. And now, we have to relinquish some of the idolatry that we have toward, depending on what the blended situation is, some of the idolatry we have toward our children. Yes, I mean, here's what happens. Here's what happens. In every blended family, there's loss. And sometimes people unify over a loss. And so when you say a woman, for instance, if she remarries, there's this bond between her and her children that the new spouse may not be able to quite comprehend because they have bound together over the loss of a relationship. Whether it be a husband or a separated father, or so the children and the primary caretaker, the mother or whatever, they bound over this loss. And so there's a sense of idolatry.
Wow.
And taking care of and protecting the children. And at some point you have to relinquish and let go. If you trust that person and you're moving toward marriage, then you can release it and trust God. That doesn't mean give up your children. That's not what I'm saying. Because you should never relinquish to a point of not caring. Some people do give up their kids to keep down the fighting. Whatever your daddy says to do, the new dad or whatever. Whatever your stepfather says to do, you just do it. That is not what I'm saying. But I am saying that the objectivity that the new parent brings to the situation, it may be necessary. You may be so close to the situation that you cannot see the obvious things. You can't see how you're putting your kids on a pedestal in a bad way, maybe. And so there are some very practical things that we could do to establish and to maintain that agape love in a blended family.
Yeah, and I want to add too, that friendship love. The reason why I keep bringing that part up is because when you think of covenant is built upon trust. Covenant is built upon relationship. And yes, you're going to have that bond with the biological child. But you have to give up your right to be right in the situation and know that, and Pam Barnes just put, sometimes the children will in their mind try to protect their parent.
Oh yes, absolutely. And like I said, they have bound over a loss. So there's this sense of we're in this together. And so especially sons tend to be very protective of their mothers. But even daughters can be the same way.
But you know, this is where the family conversation comes in. And no, you don't want to start out bringing the whole family in while you're dating. This is something that came up yesterday. You know, if the man and the woman, the husband and soon to be husband, soon to be wife are dating, don't bring the children in. But once y'all are all together, have the family connection and say that we trust each other, and that this is going to be an adjustment, but I trust him to be your father,
and then
and he trusts her to be the mother, and it's going to be an adjustment.
Yeah, there's this there's this myth or this false sense of security that says that if I marry the right person, then we will have no problems.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that even with the right person, you can have problems in a blended family. Even with the most perfect person. And so, when you anticipate those problems, then you're in a better position now to not get upset and angry and discouraged, in a situation like that. But when you've heard it before, you can go, I know what that is. And then you don't have to get so emotionally tied to a hurt, but now you can actively pursue the love that you desire, the solution to the problem, without being so disillusioned by the issue that you want to give up.
Yeah, I like something Pam said yesterday. She said she gave her new daughter the opportunity to respect her as a mother, and I thought that was important, because she said, I know who I am. I know who I am.
Yeah, she said, I'm the adult.
I'm the adult. Yeah.
And so she knew that she didn't have to get upset.
No. Yeah. She didn't have to get on that
angry
level. She didn't have to get on the level of the fear and the anxiety maybe that the child
might have been experiencing.
Yeah.
And I see people sometimes argue with children.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think
and get mad at the spouse.
They'll get mad at the spouse. Yeah. They'll get mad at the kid. They'll kind of respond back as if they are not the person in authority. And we have to remember, sometimes from a kid's perspective, that the kid is looking up at the adult as if that person is an adult. And so you're expected to behave like an adult and not get on the same level as the child, depending on the situation, to argue with someone, that you're supposed to be in authority. And I think that's another important issue to mention, is that you have to give your spouse permission to be the authority. If with your stepchildren, if you are with your children, if your spouse is constantly mocked and berated and put down by your stepkids, and they are allowed to do that, you're going to defend the child and not defend your spouse, then you are setting yourself up, for a lot of heartache preceded by the divorce.
Yeah. I have a question for you. I know some of the things that you talked about today is love, the agape love. It's the decision, and it's not an emotion. You have some points here about how we can begin to show the agape love in a blended situation. You want to begin to share some of those points?
There are some very practical things that you can do in a blended situation to pursue that agape love, to maintain and establish that agape love in a blended family. And here's some of the things you can do. Number one, you want to make decisions together with your spouse.
Yeah. So number one, make decisions together.
Yeah. You want to, some parenting, it has to be done out of earshot of the children. So the family rules, the family boundaries, the family values, you want to present the rules, for example.
Yeah.
In a fair way. You want to do things in a fair way when it comes to your biological children and your non-biological children. Your household rules. You can't have rules for one set of kids that don't apply to the next set of kids. And you can't, while you're discussing it with your spouse, it's very likely that some of that idolatry comes out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So if some of that, some of the emotional ties, some of the things some of the wrong ideas, you don't want to discuss those things in front of the children, because you don't want to set your children up to feel put down or devalued. And so you do that outside of the earshot of the children. In other words, the kids cannot weigh in on what you and your spouse decide are rules of the household. It needs to be something between you and your wife. Not to say that you can't adjust them depending on the situation, but non-biological parenting the non-biological parent must have equal authority now to correct your children, and the biological parent may need to discipline and enforce the rules of the house, especially when you first get married.
Now, I want to add to this 1A, we're going to do an outline here. This doesn't just apply to biologicals.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
That's the
This
truth.
doesn't just apply to blended families.
That's the truth.
It also applies to the family that's not blended. I mean, before you start having children, establish boundaries. You know that you're going to have children. Before you start bringing them in and into the household, and then you start favoring one over another, establish the boundaries.
Your rules should reflect your values.
Yeah, and here's the big thing. Children know when one child is valued over another.
They certainly do.
They know it,
Yes.
And you may say, well, I love all of them the same. Well, that's not true. You love all of them the same, but you may treat one different than the other.
Right.
And you have to be careful of that. And I use that word carefully. You have to be careful of that. Don't punish one and then let the other one that did the same thing
For the same crime.
go free. You
can't do that.
You can't do that. And a lot of families do that.
Right.
They do it subconsciously, I believe. Or maybe consciously.
Right. And the kids will say, well, didn't this one do the same thing? Your children will say it.
Yep.
Your children will usually notice it if they're being treated different. One thing, we don't love our kids the same, but we do love them
equally. That's it. Come on.
They all have a unique personality, and we love them based on who they are and how they are. However, we love them equally in that we have the same passionate love for each one of them, that the same appropriate love for each one of them,
and agape love,
and not there's no hierarchy in the love that we have for our children.
Right.
And so I said something the other day, not even thinking about it. It just came out, and I said, don't make one of your children a mockery. Don't make one of your children the butt of your jokes, and don't turn one of your children, or or however it is, or the stepchildren, don't turn them into the black sheeps. And when I said that, I didn't think about it. I think that sometimes the Holy Spirit is constantly speaking through you. And when I said that, there was a couple who they got convicted over it because they realized that on some level they were practicing that. And they came back to me and said, I'm so glad you said that, because this is starting to be a family dynamic. That's what that's the word I was trying to think about earlier.
Family dynamic, yeah.
So it was beginning to be a family dynamic that they were putting one child down. And they said, thank you for telling me that, because you saved us from having years of putting one child down. And then they began to remark and remember a time where one of their siblings was constantly being put down, and how it affected their
Their
life.
lives. That's right.
And so, you know, you know, by the same token, you don't want to have one child that you're constantly putting up. Because then what are you saying? You're saying that one is better
than the other.
And you have to think about what better means to a kid. You know, to us, better or worse, you know, whatever. That's something that we can resolve in our human minds, in our grown-up, mature mind. But to a kid, they think if they're better, I must be worse.
Yeah, I want to take a page from your book, and I'm gonna teach this to the men because they really need to hear this. But you said something the other night at the women's event. So good. There are 3 ways we handle pain.
People really walked away with something from that.
3 ways you handle pain. This is such that's a revolutionary thought. And the first way, not the first way. One of the ways we handle pain is we medicate pain.
Yeah.
Second way we handle pain is that we motivate pain.
We motivate it, yes.
And the third way we handle pain is that we meditate pain.
Meditate it.
Now, talking about the family of David, King David, when King David was a boy.
Yeah, talk about a dysfunctional family.
He really lived in a dysfunctional family. Now, the dad and the mother had, 5 boys?
No, I think it was
6 boys?
It was I think David was a family of 8.
Okay.
I might be remembering wrong.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But one thing about David's family is that David was almost like, and I'm going to say this, and we play, but sometimes we tell our kids, the only reason why we had you is so that you can wash the dishes and bring us the remote. And
well, you know sometimes we're playing into their complaint.
Yeah, we're just
their
playing. Yeah.
So they'll say, well, the only reason you had me is so I could do the dishes. So we'll play around with it.
We'll play with that. And it's not true. We didn't. I mean, we had them so that they could bring us the remote. But anyway, the thing that happened, the thing that happened with David is that David was put immediately into the pasture with the sheep, and basically what they did with David is that it almost seemed like he had David just to work. Yeah. Now all of the other boys were fine and strong and big, and like I could imagine them all going to the gym every morning to get their bodies right. But David
we know from history that they were soldiers in Saul's army.
Right, yeah.
So they were buff
and strong.
They were strong.
Tall.
They were probably tall. They were probably stately men. You know, so we can pick up those clues based on what we read in the scripture.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And David probably was a young man that always tried to prove something to
that he could do something.
That he could do something. So he would always try to, hey, well, Dad, look at what I did here.
Look at this.
And look at this and look at that. And he was always trying to get his parents' approval, but he never reached that pinnacle in his life.
Right. And
it was always something.
Right. David was one who learned how to medicate his pain.
Yeah.
And we know that he's a psalmist. You know, we know that from reading the scripture. And so he's out there with those sheep all that time. What does he do with the things that are in his head rolling around? He's addicted to writing. So
he gets a very addictive behavior.
If you look at David's behavior patterns, they're very addictive. Very addictive. Everything he does it to the 10th degree. You know, he doesn't just like women, he loves women, you know?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure while he was out there meditating on God or spending time with God, he was also thinking about how many women he could be with.
Oh, man.
Now our time is up, y'all. We got to stop. But I wanna pick up here tomorrow because we're talking about how to treat your children, whether it's a blended situation or a traditional situation. We're talking about things that are very practical that a lot of families don't recognize until it's brought into the light. And so come back tomorrow. We'll be here same time, same bad channel, and we're going to pick up here and talk about how you can meditate pain, or motivate pain.
Yes.
And you can and you'll find out that maybe this is why your children are acting this way.
Oh, that'll be good.
No, this is why my relationship is turning out the way it is. Amen. So we love you today. God bless you. Have an awesome day. Let us speak a word over you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. We declare shalom and blessings over your life. And we declare that Jesus is Lord and he's upholding all things by the word of his power. Be blessed. We love you. We'll see you next time. Have an awesome day.